practitioner.
It's a mirror. It's a mirror. And what your job is to make sure it isn't a mirror. Go back to the asking questions part. Like, you have to be the driver of this thing in order to get where the value is. Otherwise, it is a mirror, in my opinion. Welcome to Unqualified Advice. Hi, Sean. How are you?
Hi, Dan. I'm doing well. What's new on your end today?
Pre-record, I was just sitting here looking at myself in the camera, as you do on these calls, because I don't know. It's just a very strange situation.
What else do you do?
It's so strange. I don't like the distraction. However,
I know.
Over here, I was like, did Anthropic just like go to Cambodia and steal like street artists' color scheme? Is that just what they did? That's what I was thinking. It's got that orange and black and grayscale,
Yeah, maybe
thinking high thoughts.
Yeah. I noticed I do feel like there's a uniformity in the color scheme sometimes it wants to generate if you're not very specific with it. It will give you a very anthropic-y set of colors, and Codex will give you a very OpenAI set of colors. I feel like they have their own slight design preferences baked in.
These are the interesting things about creating some kind of intelligence, right? Because intelligences are different, and it's showing extremely. It's weird to even say it as a descriptor like that, but it shows.
It shows
that the intelligence can be different, even though the underlying technology is the same, right? You would think, transistor on or off. Smaller transistor on or off, but line up a lot of transistors together.
Well, yeah, it's and what pattern and what sequence, right? I don't know actually. But that's kind of what the weighting is all about, right? How things are weighted within the model and how it tends to go one way or the other.
Have your own weights?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why you have artists that have their own visual style, right? I mean,
totally.
You have Banksy with one vibe and Ansel Adams with another. You'd recognize
mediums are
them
different.
both.
The tastes are different. The message coming across is different. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but they they are their own thing. So
yeah. Well, in speaking of art, there was a big move over at Substack this week in releasing scanning of all the writing by a technology firm called Pangram, and Pangram is perhaps the cream of the crop by like a good mile in terms of AI detection. And I find this interesting, of course, because Prometheus is built on and around AI.
Yes.
And depending on which essay you would be looking at, there's going to be more human involvement in the construction of the word, like the order of the words, I'll put it, not the construction of the essay or the taste in the essay. There's a lot to dig into, but the order of the words matters for Pangram to be able to detect. And so there's going to be some essays of mine in particular that are going to score 100, meaning, all machine created. But does that mean that the essay was created by the machine? And there's going to be others with a lower score. And then my thrust this week was showing that you can pit machine against machine, which is, I think, where we're going to see, if this is what people want, then we will see the incentives have been designed such that we watch machine versus machine rather than actually getting more human. That's my thrust of argument.
So if you have a tool that is good at quote unquote detecting AI based upon the sequence of the words, couldn't you just go tell your AI to say, hey, this tool is going to be reading it, make sure that it doesn't score well based upon what you know about it? Or
not quite that simple, but directionally you got it. And what you end up with is a far worse product. You really do.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I spent some time thinking about it.
Now we're gonna get AI slopped. It's forcing itself to be sloppier, so that other AI can't tell that it's AI.
Humans are already doing this. No, people are being self-conscious about their use of M dashes and different things like that, right? Or lack of error in the prose.
I used to use a sporadic M dash, and I've just eliminated it from my writing style.
Yeah. So this is all already changing the human behavior anyway. So I don't know the end game is what I'm questioning here. I understand the thrust. I understand why people want it completely. But I also think people are going to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater by saying any Pangram score above 75, I just don't read that essay. And I'm saying you are probably going to be missing out on some very good essays, probably better than some of the Pangram score 0 essays.
Yeah. So what percentage of essays did you see any overall stats? Did they release
I
any
have not. I have
analysis?
not. I'm interested to see that analysis because I don't know that they just unleashed Pangram on the corpus of Substack. I think that might be a little bit expensive. But as new essays are created, as a creator, you can like scan it ahead of time and then like leave a statement on like how I created this. So they're not they're not being totally dogmatic about it, but I think readers are. A certain
Mm.
amount of readers are. And that's my thrust of trying to say like, listen, quality is still quality and you still have to be the judge as creator and as reader. I don't believe that this AI detection score actually helps you on that front. It
Mm-mm.
might a little, but it's not necessarily a word order detector isn't going to tell you the quality of the idea, isn't going to tell you anything about the quality of idea or the originality of the idea.
You're right. It's not going to tell you like the content. It's not telling you content. It's all style, right? It's all style and
So
presentation.
if there is a fiction area on Substack, and that I would say I understand, like to put more weight on the Pangram scoring on fiction. I
Yeah,
completely
that's a good
understand
point. It depends what the content is, I suppose, to
100%.
some degree.
I want there to be novelty in a novel. But if I'm reading information, sometimes the AI is much better at like compressing the information. Or speaking for me, AI has made me do research faster, more completely, and more truthfully, such that I learned, which is why I created Prometheus. It's the whole point of it is for me to learn. And if other people along the way do, awesome. And then I publish it to keep myself honest. Because that doubles down on like I'm not going to push send on a thing that I'm embarrassed of or think that might be wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly. That you have some pride in that what you're putting out there is accurate, is expressing the idea that you wanted to craft and that you found important to share, and that as you go through and read it and it makes sense to you, and it's expressing the thought that you wanted
Yeah.
to express, and that you've achieved your goal and you've pushed send on what you feel to be a legible piece of writing that expresses what you wanted to express. That's the goal.
That is the goal. And then there's lots of
So,
ways to make it better than default AI output, which is
yes,
people are the
absolutely. I
adjective
have,
slop has been too broadly applied.
have you know what I haven't done? And I'm going to do this the next time I generate our show notes and I have some AI writing come about. I'm going to pop into Hemingway Editor and see. I wonder how it scores in Hemingway Editor.
That's a very good question because that's a useful editor. That's a useful perspective. If people are assembling words, Hemingway like it kind of teaches you to be sharp and short.
I wrote a lot of stuff in Hemingway for a couple of years, and it changed the way I write to a degree. I don't use it nearly as much as I used to, but it was a very
For the
useful
better,
tool.
you would say.
For the better, yes, absolutely. It helps you cut a lot of the cruft.
My things have been getting long or longer.
Yeah, even
and
just popping them in after you've written them wherever, pop them in there and be like, okay, let me go and tweak it a bit, and then move it back to the editor of your choice for final polish. But I think it's I need to get back into that. I always found it to be useful. Honestly, should be taking my own advice.
One of the indictments of AI is it's going to make people stop thinking, right? And I think to some degree there are going to be people who fall into that trap, just as there are people who watch short form video all day and fry their brains. You can't stop everybody from poisoning themselves. Doritos are around, but
so is lettuce from questionable sources too.
Yes. I have a. It looks like that. So we're calling. It's a picture.
Is that Oregon Trail?
It is green scale, like an old computer monitor from when Sean and I were in the school library and maybe elementary school.
Let's say it looks like an IBM.
Yeah, 386.
IBM 386. Yeah, there you go. I was trying to remember the number.
And it's just black and green, and it looks like Oregon Trail, and it says, "You have died from excessive Canadian wildfire smoke inhalation and diarrhea lettuce." Because that was like happening in the same week,
Have you been getting bad air quality from the fires?
Have. Not from Canada, from Colorado. Colorado's half on fire. We had a fire in the neighborhood next door just yesterday.
France is half on fire too. It's everywhere
Spain.
now. Yeah. It's not usually in Europe. It's another American trend catching taking off.
Not the kind of cultural export we would be hoping for, but
yeah.
Anyway, what was my diversion there? Anyway, I think AI, like there is this thrust where it's going to like take people, and for kids and I'm not saying that I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about this for myself. And what I found is that if you use it well, you can, of course, make yourself a lot smarter and bring a lot more perspective. And so one of my things this week is AI should make you think harder, not less or less hard. It shouldn't be thinking for you. It should be making you think harder. And therefore, go to it less as an answer machine. It's very good at that. Keep going, keep doing that. But the level up and the thing that makes you better is ask better questions. Ask it how to ask better questions. Go a little bit deeper, right? Rather than like change your ability to get the information that you want, not just go get the information. And this, I would say, the project of Prometheus Dispatch for me has been the biggest gain for me from it, is just making me better at hunting and thinking and twisting around some topics that like I started off thinking I would go in one direction and then ending the essay in a different one. And I think we've done that here live on the show before, where we started off an episode with an opinion and then we talked through it. And
Honestly,
then by the end of the episode, we were like, wait a minute, I actually think we think differently now.
Yeah,
and this is the magic. This is what people should be aiming for.
That's well summarized. I think that is the antithesis of what people want and expect is what's interesting about that, right? And that people want it to or expect it to be something that, oh, I'm going to unload this to a thing, and no, this is a machine to help me improve on what I am capable of already, not for me to unload my work, but to really hone in and improve it and be more productive in the long run, and to take better notes. And I've really come to appreciating the audio feature on the Claude app. So that way
I think more people would use it if they heard that this was how this even worked, right? I don't use it. I don't commute, but I think if I were stuck in the car, podcasts were a big revelation for me when I had a commute. But now I think you've gone like another step change in terms of like, how can I transform my commute into something both interesting and entertaining, but also productive?
Yeah. So, I mean, I basically created a repo that most of my shit right now is Star Trek themed. So my Mac Studio is called the Mothership. My Mac
for listeners, you could choose Dune, you could choose Star Wars, you could choose whatever.
Yeah, you could choose whatever. So I created an agent number one who resides in what's called the Bridge repo on my GitHub.
Awesome. Okay.
And so every time I talk to number one, and he has access, or it has access to all the other projects, and it can go and help and fetch information from those projects. And it creates it'll go every day at 5:15 and create a daily brief of updates from across the different repos it can see into, and say, this is what was done, this is what we talked about yesterday. And I feed that into the chat box in the morning, and then I talk to it on the way to work, and it will say, here's what you need to think about today. And then I can say, well, actually, that's what you'd think, but you're wrong. This is what I need to think about today, and this is why, and this is what I want to focus on. And at the end of the day, I want to have this, and this kind of at least understood better. And at the end of the day, I can come back and say, well, I went and walked the line at the new job, and I saw how the machines are laid out, and these are my thoughts on what machines might be performing well, or what we might need to what technology we might need to improve on, or what an employee said to me about maybe, oh, they're not happy about something, or they're very happy, or just anything that came up to you throughout the day, and be able to talk about that, and then say, hey, that gives me an idea, make a note about this. And then at the end of the day, I get a little report of, here's what happened, and here's the log on the progress that was made, and it keeps that. So then the next morning when I come back, I can say, hey, what was that we needed to do yesterday that we didn't get to? And it will remind you. And it has context on, again, all these projects that I've given it context to. So I can just audio journal effectively what happened that day, what worked well, what didn't, what my aims for the next day are, what successes will look like, or what failure will look like, and actually kind of think through it and understand it, and be a little more self-reflective in a way, but also just get all my thoughts captured, because there's so many things that happen in a day in my role where I spend probably, honestly, 80% of my time in meetings, and just having the time to reflect and say, oh, well, this is what I learned and what I need to take forward and what I need to make sure I follow up on before I forget to capture it. It's very handy.
Give it to a machine that doesn't forget.
Exactly. Now, sometimes it'll come straight and or I'm sorry, it'll sometimes it won't always get everything quite right. It has its foibles. It's not perfect, but it gets you 99% better than I've ever been as far as capturing things of that nature. And also then giving you at least a first pass at, like, the average person, what they would do in that situation, right? Oh, well, you could consider this or this if you're thinking it, it's like, well, that's not right, but at least it gets you thinking.
At least it gets you thinking, and also you can evolve this personality over time.
Absolutely.
Make it more adversarial. You could have multiple personalities too, like make it more adversarial or constructively critical or
Yes.
first principles thinker or whatever. Like, this is another thing in my pipeline where when I have almost finished and I'm happy with the ideas and the push of everything, I send it to a council. A council is of 5 advisors, and each advisor has their own sort of starting viewpoint, and they each get given a prompt. It all runs via subagents, and then they assemble their thoughts, send them back up to the board lead, and then the board lead consumes and then offers me advice on what the board thought, and that's also been really helpful. It's really, sometimes I start over, or some of those, like, there are ideas still in the pipeline because the board blew it up, and I'm like, I'm just so wrong here. This
That's
idea goes in
interesting.
the bin for now.
What percentage would you say of time that occurs?
That I throw it out?
I'm just curious if it's a high percentage or okay.
It's low.
Yeah.
Probably
Low?
less than
Okay.
10, but low. But it's one of those things where, like, that was a success. Other people might look at that and be like, oh my gosh, it's a failure. For me, that was success. Like, I learned that my opinion was just so far off of what I actually want, right? It was like an installed opinion or a learned opinion or something I held on to for a long time. And then, you toss it through all these other personalities with research, with grounded, like, linking to real things in the real world. And you're like, oh, okay, this is a better argument that I wish I could I wish I could give you a super clean example right now. But
no, it's okay. I was trying to imagine what that would look like. And I'm trying to imagine what that might feel like for me or look like on my end. I wonder if, like, are you more open to the feedback because it's a machine?
I think people should be more open to asking questions that they're embarrassed to ask too.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think that cuts both ways. It's a dual use technology, right? Like, that's probably the wrong use of that. But, like, you can use it for evil or good. And sometimes that, that thing that you've been hiding is like a pretty useful thing to, put out in the open, but it's hard to find the right human to do that with. And here you have a pretty remarkable intelligence that you can go consult with.
You do. I asked it I had a random engineering idea on the shop floor the other day. I'm like, man, it'd be cool if we could do this. And I asked it, Claude, how could we do this? And basically it said you can't. But it gave me very good reasons why. I'm like, yep, that all makes sense. The material's just not going to be strong enough to do what I need it to do. Yep, nope, not for any practical cost. Okay. But I mean, I look through, its notes. I'm like, yeah, that all looks like the calculations I remember from mechanical engineering school. I think they're at least directionally right, and I'm not going to spend more time
Exactly. How many hours does that save of actually, like, validating this idea, or hours that you wouldn't have to validate?
For a quick pass, like, because it was so, like, my idea was so far, like, out of the realm of working in any immediate fashion that I was like, okay, this is at least a good enough for a filter here.
Yeah, and these ideas, which exist aplenty, right? But then they so often don't get tried because there's not a capacity, money, time, whatever. And now we can stuff all these ideas into the machine, and the 0.1% of winners can be pursued.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas they might have been thrown in the bin, and then it's another 50 years before the other person has that thought again, right? Something to that effect.
Yeah. I had an idea, or I had a thought the other day. I think there's a percentage of, probably Gen Xers who are working for mid-sized and small companies who don't have, like, a robust IT department, and they're not going to have an AI deployment strategy.
No, not at all.
If you're in one of these situations, go spend the money on a nice subscription and build UBot and start to try to train it to be you as best as you can. And ultimately, I think by the time, in the next couple of years pass and some tech upgrades continue to progress, you probably spend a lot of time doing things that are kind of menial, like formatting, just initially sorting through, sorting through junk emails, clicking approvals. There's a lot of things you can probably, in a small to mid-sized company, go and kind of self-automate and build yourself an agent that then you can, retire early effectively and say, hey, I'm gonna just consult and spend 2 hours a day and work a much different schedule. I feel there's an opportunity for people who want to effectively build a version of themselves that it can't do everything. It can't replace a person, but it can lighten the load to the point where I think it's going to change how people in those companies work. I think there's going to be a lot of people taking advantage. Yes.
Two things. If you don't know how to do this, you call me and you pay me, and I will come help you do it. Dear listener.
And it's a good ROI. It's going to be a good ROI for you.
Very good ROI. The other thought is like, or another way to think about it is like, companies are leaky. Intelligence is leaky within companies. People leave, people forget. There's a lot of tacit knowledge stored in brains that isn't documented down. Spending more time getting this into a legible place and creating basically machines or intelligences that wrap themselves around some of this stuff and make it more queryable across the org from junior to senior all around.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can elevate people and also take a bunch of stuff off of other people's plates that they don't want. So I think it's a win-win across the board if architected well. And then this leakiness idea, right? Like you could actually create, and like there is a meaningfully, I think there would be a meaningful return, and it would be relatively cheap to store and grow this company intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have it grow with you along the way.
Again, just the idea of a common agent that has like even just a Slack channel that the whole team has access to, that then is also invited to all the meetings, so it gets the transcriptions, and it can keep a constant log and record and create sub agents for different purposes off of that. But having the context and the retained knowledge in a more meaningful way. I do worry that eventually we're going to end up creating so much information that it's overwhelming, and that it doesn't there's too much noise and not enough signal sometimes. But at the same time, I think.
Do you have cleaner agents in your repos yet?
No, I should. That's a great idea. Now that you say it, I don't know why I haven't thought of that. All you had to say was the words.
Don't never disrespect the janitor. Everyone, we all need people to clean up after ourselves.
I will make it do. Make it do clean passes occasionally.
Yeah,
I don't have a dedicated agent, but that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super disciplined or clean about this yet, but like it's been on my mind of like this has to happen, and especially if you were talking at like company scale, there would have to be some sort of deliberate archiving process.
Yeah, and because you would end up with a lot of bad information too. That people might say something that's not just quite right.
Right.
And,
one agent greps the repo for something and then picks up the file that's 3 months deprecated or something, and everyone knew it, but the agent doesn't, because every agent is brand new by default. You just hired 1 million terrible employees. Congrats. Think about your AI strategy. It is not just throw it at the wall. This stuff takes considerable thought to architect well.
Yes. I think. And companies are, I believe, realizing that. I think it's harder the larger the company, frankly.
For sure.
I think that the companies that have smaller scale are much more well positioned to actually integrate this technology in modern.
Too many of them are sleeping at the wheel.
Today.
Yeah. The talent is mostly within big companies, but the actual like ease of implementation is on the small companies. It's totally inverted right now. Yeah. Which is why you should hire me.
There you go. You can find Dan's contact information on unqualifiedadvicepodcast.com under hosts.
I'll come talk to you, teach you. Yeah.
Along with the portfolio of Dan's work.
Yeah. Proof of work. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a couple people in my life that I've like, let me come over and let me watch how you do what you do, because I think you do a lot of document work where it's formatting, and I think you're not wasting time, but you're spending a lot of time on something that you don't need to now. Like, frankly, you did 5 years ago. You probably don't need to if you know how to use this tool right. You're sitting here complaining about Adobe doing this to your PDF. Why are you sitting here complaining about Adobe doing this to your PDF?
Why even open the PDF? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You just need to convert that table from the Excel file into a PDF, or into this PDF document. Why are you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That like there are
and
use
this
cases
is all
here. You can build
this is gateway stuff. Like you've graduated from Chatbot into like it does some work for me, and lots of people, and I get it, are proud that they can like reformat a PDF or reformat a deck, and I'm like, okay, well now you've gotten to second grade, and let me tell you, there is a view from graduate school. It exists already, right?
that I have my tricks is a common theme I've heard about people when I'm talking about how to use these tools and integrate them into workflows. And they're like, oh, but I have all these little tricks that I do that in my, yes. And those are what we call rules. And you write them down once and you record it the first time you do it and say, well, this is my little trick for this. And it might say that's a great way to do it, but it also might say, well, why would you do that when you could just do this?
Yeah.
And your
Back
little
to
tricks that
asking
you
questions
think,
rather than, yeah.
yes, but also it'll say, okay, well, here's what you need, and here's the end product, and it is what you said you needed. I went with a different route, but here you go. Once you get that validation, pass it up, and like now, when one use case or use case that you can see in action if you want, dear listener, is our show notes that I just now go dump our transcript in there, and it gets a first pass generation up within no time whatsoever. Yeah. And then I spend still 15, 20 minutes going through and editing it and saying, oh, no, that's dumb the way you said that. And let's get rid of that M dash and let's reword this a little bit so it sounds not AI. But it reduced what I used to take 2.5, 3 hours generating to get everything ready down to 40 minutes. I mean, that's to me a big win. It took several iterations of working with it. And the first couple of times it was a little frustrating. It's like, well, nope, that didn't work right. Nope, that took more time that time than it should have because I was just learning how to do it. But by the time I got the skills kind of defined and built and set up and the workflows, it teaches itself too. It helps. It says it'll help.
That's why you want to build outside of the chatbot. The chatbot doesn't grow with you. Nothing changes. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Have you created a voice DNA file?
No, that's an interesting thought.
Ask it to do like a voice-dna.json. And then you already have plenty of writing online, as I did too. Yeah. So like for Prometheus, it's all trained on me. Like it sounds a lot like me because I've written enough, both privately and publicly, that I stuffed it in there.
And I gave mine access to all my old writings that never got published that weren't very good.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, but then make a deliberate voice and then wire that into the system. That there's because if you start at generation, you can stay closer to your own voice rather than drift into AI.
Okay, I don't think I have that file specifically generated in that way, but I do have some mechanics around that. I'll have to look and see exactly how that mechanic actually is constructed. That there is a Sean's voice file effectively that it refers to.
Yeah. I think this helps because again, like you kind of go back to feeling like I don't read my output as something that feels very foreign or in the chatbot zone, right? I think it's pretty. I'm dog fooding, so maybe I'm getting comfortable with it, but
no. But when I read the stuff on Prometheus, like there's a couple of times when I can tell that sentence feels a little AI, but overall, it's not.
The earlier ones more so, and I've gotten better.
Yeah, I would say that it did improve over time. It has improved, which is how it should work, right?
I'm not embarrassed to that at all.
It'd be weird if it didn't, or if it went the other way. So
I took the advice of many books and other people I've listened to over the years of like, if you aren't embarrassed of your first try, then you aren't growing, or you're not doing, or you quit. Yeah. Just keep going.
Indeed. We're about 50 episodes away from being able to talk to Mr. Beast, by the way.
What do you mean?
Remember in his what was it? He had the Beast handbook that came out, playbook that came out a couple of years ago, right? We were starting this, and it was something about record 100 episodes and publish 100 episodes and come talk to me. So I was just saying we're about halfway there.
That door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Making progress.
I mean, the master of Anyway, but. Speaking of this podcast and things that we build and so many other things in life, now the act of creation, the bar of the creative act is lowered. The bar to like getting it out the door in a way that you are not embarrassed to put it out in the world. Let's put it that way, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
So competition goes up, and in large part, this will be good for all sorts of reasons. More at-bats, more variety, more minds attempting to put themselves in the ball field, and less gatekeeping. Maybe less gatekeeping. Distribution is the hard part now. No?
Yeah.
So if I had a following on Twitter,
who's actually now here's the thing. Are people still going to be looking at content the same way in a few years that they do now? Will they be going and searching and reading the full article, or will they be having their own agents go and get summaries of all this? And it's going to be robots talking to robots, like a human.
This is the vision that people are scared of, and they want Pangram to tell them no, right?
Yeah.
But the same thing's happening in short form. The same thing's happening on YouTube. I think this is just another one of those like one of those things where like, this is what I wrote. It was like every Bible used to be written by a scribe, and then Gutenberg came out. Guess what? There was a 30 years war in Europe over. It's like this is going to be a huge shift, and I don't think any thrust of putting the genie, like anything that sounds or is adjacent to putting the genie back in the bottle by force, all of those will fail. We will have to adapt as humanity, which means you have to turn your brain on a little bit. And then those of us who choose not to will be left behind in some way.
Yeah. And I also feel like we when we speak about this and when it's spoken about, people make it sound like it's happening really fast. But I think if you look around, it's not really happening all that fast.
I agree. Yeah.
Right. I think
we're sitting here trying to teach people like how to move past the chatbot level. I'm like, it's been a year of like solid intelligence, and everyone's just like still chatting.
Yeah. And I think about what, like 2 years ago, if you had told me, or if you had asked me to go and set up a website using Firebase and Vercel, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I don't know.
And you could look at it, but it would have taken so much technical depth.
But I would have been like, I don't have the time for this. I don't have the time to understand what I need to understand to figure this out, because it's doable. It's forms. It's fields, and this field means this and does this, but I don't have the bandwidth to
it's time
to process it. But now I can say, okay, let me figure this out. Hey, robot, go do this for me. Okay. Yes.
Hey, robot, tell me which technology stack I should use if this is the outcome that I want.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
Start there. Start with your architecture and tool choice and software choice, and then build off of it. Yeah.
I need something that does this, that looks like this, that has these features. What are my options in building that?
That isn't $250 a month to run, and put on all the constraints and the things that you need.
And that, I think this again, it works depending upon your task and the size of an organization. I think that becomes difficult as you move into a larger organization where you have a lot of users using a piece of software, for example, and there's admin
for sure,
and you build
and cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity problems. It's the technology is not to the point where my wife, for example, could just come in and be like, "Oh, I'm going to go do this, and here you go. Here's the finished product," because you have to go and wire and plumb up to these other services, and you have to have the right type of mindset, I think, to work through some of those issues. Many people could. I don't think everybody can or will or will have the patience for it.
What needs to happen at the corporate level? Like when this is, former CTO. What I would be wanting right now is I would probably not be wanting to hire another IT person, in part because they're technical, they're logical, they understand the systems and how things are supposed to be. And that's not to say that, hunting within the grounds of IT worker isn't the place to be, but I would be wanting to hire like a transformation agent or something, because you mentioned technical debt. And I think that's actually one of the greenest opportunities for AI, is to remove or fix or transform the technical debt across organizations such that they can begin moving in the more correct or desired direction, or more cleanly or more efficiently, whatever. AI is really good at migrations. And I would be wanting that. Someone who is like willing to step out from the desk, not spend time behind the screens, walk through the organization, interview a bunch of people, and understand not just the technical situation, but understand the usability and like human side of the landscape, and then propose big plans, and then have to put that in front of the whole entire IT org and say like, who is going to sit in what seat? Because we're going to need a lot of drivers. This is going to involve lots of humans. And then we're going to unleash this thing on this transformation and strap in.
I think there is. I think what larger companies will need to do is effectively set up some dedicated internal infrastructure where they're going to be able to run models on their own servers, either on-prem or on the cloud, without to manage token costs. But then ultimately they need to set up basically sandboxes for their teams to go in and start creating tools that are not necessarily AI themselves, that are not, I think the most useful or the interesting use cases are where you're helping AI plumb up a Python tool for you that then is going to go programmatic and run, repeatably every day on a cron job that's much more robust than saying, oh, this agent's going to pick up and process this every day, because there's going to be different changes in the way the agent thinks. Frankly.
You want to you actually want to use the least amount of intelligence possible.
Exactly. I want to build tools that don't call the agent. I want the agent to help me build the tools.
Yep. And maintain the tool.
Most things. Like you might say, oh, we're going to do a call to do a classification on this thing that came in. Oh, the agent reads it and says, oh, that's a type A, type B, type C, totally. File it this way. But generally speaking, the actual things that I think companies will find use is that then processing the data in more unique and meaningful ways and giving them cleaner access to information and helping them clean up their internal data systems that tend to get messy when you have hundreds of thousands of employees accessing on a daily basis.
That's big.
That's how I see that. Where I think more big companies will be turning is that they're going to set up some internal dedicated sandboxes that then certain employees get access to go start building and saying, what can you build? What admin tasks are currently being done by, and this is where I think it starts to get gross, is because as you do that, you will have some efficiencies, for lack of a nicer term.
And so, to anyone who is fearful of that question, I would say think of a different question to ask yourself and say, when I am employed or when I come into an organization, what agents do I bring with me? If I hire you, I should not be just hiring you these days. I should be hiring you and the agents you know how to build and unleash within an organization efficiently, right? That's how I think about it. And or if I were an employee and I automated some approaching 100% of my job and I went and told my boss about it, I would be the boss. And I hope more of these people exist in the world, where I would just double your salary and say, where do you want to do it next?
I work for a company that would let you double somebody's salary. That's funny.
I'm pushing hard.
I know what you mean.
But I think that's the right direction.
In the right organization, absolutely. And that's again where I think there's a lot of those small to mid-sized companies, much opportunity, that there is ample room for people to do that. And again, you're never going to be able to, I think, fully automate people's jobs, but you'll definitely be able to reduce the bandwidth needed for big swaths of them and let them focus on the things that the tools just aren't good at and probably will hopefully always struggle with. Although I don't know what those are.
They get pretty good, but like, again, all these different actions that the agent wasn't thinking of, like cleaning up after itself. Like all these agents are brand new as soon as they get created. You need to have context in the repo. Like there's so architecture. There's so much for humans still to think about, but you got to think, which is a blocker for some people. It's like they don't anyway. What revealed preferences? Some
people. I think you have the INTJ types. Not that the Myers-Briggs is all accurate. That are architects, and you have types that aren't that. Right?
I am that.
That doesn't surprise me.
As soon as you said, I was like, "Oh my god, does he know?"
I mean, I'm more on the IPIP Big Five. I think that's a little more scientifically just. But yeah, no, the MTBI is always at least a fun.
It is fun. It's direction. It's like directional. It's informational. It's not. Yeah, it's not defining.
It's a little horoscopy, but it's directionally kind of feels okay.
There's a lot of like Enneagram fans.
Yeah.
Did you ever take that one?
No, I never did.
Yeah, there's a lot of fans in that world too. But again,
okay,
little horoscope. Whatever. They're all. That's what's fun about taking all of them, is then you kind of like amalgamate them together or whatever. And then put that in your personality repo and have a conversation about like, what are my weak spots? Like when I walk into a room a little bit nervous, like what can I do to stem the tide on that amygdala dial up and all.
I asked the robot this week to ask how it would think I would score on that. And then I gave it a old blog post I wrote about how I actually did score. And it was pretty close. It actually
interesting.
It did a better job than I thought it would.
Well, I mean, which model?
It was. Oh, actually, I think I used Fable.
Well, Fable's good at that stuff. Fable's deep, dude.
I think I was just sitting on the couch with my laptop, and I just started this chat. I'm like, why am I burning Fable tokens on this? But it was like I was just did not really doing anything. So I was like, oh, whatever. Yeah, just let it go.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't think that's a poor use of it. It's like it's about deliberately using the tokens where you want to use them. And human personality analysis is extremely hard. So I don't know. I think that's actually a good place for Fable, especially if you're just trying to make yourself better rather than like make yourself feel good.
Yeah, I was just curious. I wanted to understand, because I wanted to understand what it really knew, like what it could suss out about me, having like, okay, infer like how you think I would score on these tests. I have two examples of these tests, the Myers-Briggs and the IPIP that I took 3-4 years ago. Let's see how you think I score. And again, like I kind of need to go retake them, because I think my scores would have changed over the 3 to 4 years on a couple of the metrics at least. But it was pretty close, and for just something that I sit here and chat with and give information to and ask it to create different things for it to be able to come within. I mean, on the IPIP where it actually gave you scores, it was within a few points on most of them. It was 5 or 10 points. Like a couple of them it was dead on, and a couple of them was off by 10 points. It was not bad. And for it to be able to do that and infer that, I think also tells you a lot about human personalities.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I wonder if that works for all personality types or just my subset.
I wonder if there are better camouflagers. Because I took Andrew Wilkinson created this like deep personality app.
Okay.
And it takes like an hour. It's a lot of questions. And then one of the many things that output, like it'll walk you through it, the whole guide or whatever on your output. But part of the output is like a prompt. And the prompt is, in terms of tokens, extremely small, but it basically outlays every single personality test that has existed in the past like X years, right? A lot of them. And then gives you a score, an approximation score based on all the questions that you had answered, how you would have scored on that particular personality test. So then inside of your prompt is a whole mess of different thought processes on how to measure you as a human, right? As the best explanation I can think of it. And I don't know, it was enlightening. But one of the things it accused me of is camouflaging.
Camouflaging.
Yeah.
Interesting. So camouflaging to the world in general, or to was it able to be more specific than just camouflaging? Like in what sense? Do you know?
Like camouflaging my own anxiety.
Okay. Basically not letting people see what you're really feeling.
Yes.
I think that's just.
I'm like, isn't that just surviving?
I'd say, isn't that just humanity?
The guy who's lived it his whole life,
I was gonna say, isn't that just what people do? That's just being from the Midwest. Yes. I think that's just being Midwestern.
Maybe, yeah. This is why I thought it was all interesting or whatever. But yeah, now you've made me, listening to you, I was like, man, I should take that prompt and stick it in Fable, because it's probably been, Opus 4.5 since the last time I touched
why not?
it. Right?
Why not?
Yeah.
I might have to go take this deep personality app assessment.
I think it's actually a worthy investment of your time. Yeah, I found it very interesting, because then it has this prompt that like grows with the model essentially, right? And you can go query it when you're having a thing.
Okay.
Not your therapist, but also there's a lot of bad therapy out there. This is probably not too bad. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of people getting a lot of bad therapy for the next few years. I think
there already is.
Yeah, there already are.
Delivered by humans.
Well, that too. That's also true. I wonder if the therapy that people try to get out of AI will ultimately be
better or worse.
Yeah, because like
I think it depends on the practitioner.
I mean, the model itself is going to lean towards the way that the practitioner.
It's a mirror.
Exactly.
It's a mirror.
Exactly. So if
your job is to make sure it isn't a mirror. Like you go back to the asking questions part. Like you have to be the driver of this thing in order to get where the value is. Otherwise, it is a mirror, in my opinion.
Well, and one that you can distort.
Same
too, because you can again shape the way it answers and the format it outputs, and your feedback will make it realize that you liked or didn't like your response, and it'll tune its responses accordingly. So you could end up in a negative loop of if you're using it for the wrong thing and getting bad feedback effectively.
You were getting bad feedback, but you were getting the feedback that you have asked for and want. Therefore, you seek more of it, and you are actually your direction of travel is exactly the opposite direction.
You build your own little digital echo chamber. Congratulations!
Yep. Welcome to the bubble in a bubble.
Yes,
you're more alone than before.
Yes, but
see, this is why like the banning of AI just generally like is so stupid. Like we should be teaching people how to use it. It's a tool. Like I mean, I think most people
You
know
say
how
we
to
should
use
be
it.
teaching people how to use it, but I think we're all still figuring it out, and that's part of the problem. Is we don't necessarily, and there's not going to be a playbook.
There's no
ever on
final
it.
answer here. It evolves.
Yeah, there's
too
no
quick.
final answer. You're right.
The final answer for today is these are the things that we know, and these are the things that we're going to teach, because we want young adults who are capable and armored, not only to protect themselves from this, but to wield it wisely. It's a dual. I misused dual use technology earlier. This is a dual use technology, and it already is.
Yes, it really is. And
this is where all the myths come from. This is Star Wars. This is like the Force. It sounds so silly, but it is. Like, how many epic stories are about a thing that can be used for good or evil? And it is up to you, wise one, right? It is the passing on of this thing that is hard and difficult, that you alone must choose to use it for death and destruction, or to use it with wisdom. And this is the invitation.
I love that analogy. I never would have compared this to the Force. I would have never thought to even bring about the midichlorians, but here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. Well, I think that's a good spot to leave it off for our listeners, Dan. With that note, let's say use the Force and go build something this week.
Very good. See you all.